everybody. Welcome back to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. You know me, Mary, your friendly neighborhood preacher teacher, and we're back here with Roland Walters. Say hello, Roland.
Hey, everybody.
I was trying to come up with like a really cool segment name right before we got on, just because when we're with Roland, everything's very calm. We're very chillaxed. We have a go with the flow kind of attitude. So I wanted to be like, come meander with us. Let's have a reflection. Let's take a moment with Roland. But like nothing quite stuck. So we're working on that. That's something we're working on actively. This will be our active homework to work on. Well, Roland, what's going on with you in your neck of the woods? What's going on in your neighborhood?
Well, in my neck of the woods, it's still working with clients and doing occasional energy cascades around, and just more so locally these days. Got one at the end of the month at a local shop. You know what? I'm just sitting here thinking, like, which one is it the end of the month now? Wake Forest, up in Wake Forest. So anyway, and then on the flip side of that is, it's the growing season, so I got my garden planted and all that good, and good rain yesterday, and it's amazing how much everything jumped. So staying busy.
Why was your garden in air quotes? I'm just curious. My garden. I planted my garden.
Well, it's kind of like for me, kind of experimental. I was used to, grew up doing gardens where you till up all the ground, and my parents actually had when I was a kid almost 2 acres worth of garden. It was 3 huge gardens, and then of course when I got away from it, I did nothing for a long time, and then when I came back to the farm like 20 years ago, I started doing a little bit, but I don't, I've gone into the raised bed thing instead of tilling up the ground so much and all that. So it's a little bit on the experimental side from each year, but so I don't think that really answered your question about the air quotes.
I mean, it kind of answered my question, is that your own expectations of what a garden should be has kept you from thinking that your garden is a real garden.
Good point.
Sorry to blow you out first thing.
But actually I'm pretty happy with it. I like the flexibility and more the control, and starting out with new soil type compost and things like that, and also I do like the idea of not having to bend all the way over to the ground to get stuff. But I've got 20 different things planted, so it's probably not a lot of any one thing to put up any food for like storage, but I'm going to enjoy fresh stuff when it comes along. So
absolutely. And I'm getting a lot of, how does this feel? I don't even know how to describe this energy. It just feels here where it's coming up, because it just feels like, I want to say a feminine energy, but it's not quite that. It's just earthy, planty kind of energy. So maybe like the plant beings are with us here now, but it just feels very flow, very light, very airy, and kind of go with the flow is something that we even talked about already. And the plants are our best teachers with that. The plant spirits are our best teachers of how to go through our cycles. And that is feminine nature, is learning how to go through our cycles of being planted and birthed and growing and then dying back into the ground. Do you do a lot of work with plant spirits while you work with the plants themselves?
No, I won't say that I work with plant spirits, but specifically, but I am very much into, and always have been, always loved seeing whatever grow, whether it be grass out in the pastures or what have you. But when you got your hand into it, whether me being on the agriculture side or the farm side and getting it growing and seeing it take off, or whether it's in the garden and I've, placing actually physically placing the seeds or the plants, and then to go back look at it a week later or a month later, and you're like, it's kind of like watching your kid grow, but in such a fast
Mhm.
you can see it. But so it's always been that kind of enjoyment feeling to it. I know there's a certain degree of grounding to it, certain degree of just connection that is not, always here. It's that other part of us that, we're like the interesting. It's kind of like not really the word that came to me is channel, but we're not really that. But between Mother Earth and the divine, this body is the connection between the two. So
Mhm.
it's just it's a very enjoyable thing. So working with actually the plant spirits, I can't honestly say I'm calling on them, but we know they're there, and they know us or our intentions, I guess.
I feel a strong connection with that because, like, when you're talking about the human body as being the bridge between the heavens and the earth, essentially just being that heart meet point in the middle of that, even if you're not actively, like, consciously working with the plant spirits of the earth, you feel their effects. You feel the grounding that's in it. And then, like you said, the pride and joy of watching them shoot up and grow. It's because when you plant those seeds, you're planting it like with your intentions and with your energy, and you know what you want out of it, what this particular fruit or vegetable, probably vegetable, is going to be, and then nurturing it and knowing that when it comes up, ah, you get that connection feeling because it's like part of you. There's an energy connection in it that's happening. There's a card I want to pull, but I got to find the deck and like actually find the card.
All right.
It just came to my mind. I don't know why. Like I can see the picture in my mind because a lot of what we were talking about before that was coming up for Roland, like he likes to, he hears these words from spirit, and then this is what we're like, okay, well, we'll put it all together and weave it into a web when we're there and just kind of channel through whatever message comes through at the moment. And there were things like flow, change, expectations, and I had intentions in there. So it just feels like that could be easily recognizable in the garden, just in the garden. And actually, that took me by surprise because I know you as a cattle farmer,
Yeah.
but not as a gardener. So I really like you as a gardener.
Well, I think that goes, um, back to change. We can go back to my early life, you know, pre-college, back 30 some years. Then it was like there was so much of it. I just wanted to get away from it. But after college, I got into it again and did a fair amount. And then a few years after that, I got too far into it and couldn't keep up with it because I was so into the farming and everything else as well. And then you get away from it and come back to it, and or at least I did. So, but
Okay. So
so
this
what?
is guiding me. This is guiding me to the upper world, Roland.
Okie dokie, let's go.
How do we feel about those upper realms? And the reason why is this. So let's think about what's happening. This is our reflection, guys. This is why we wanted to name this like a reflection or a moment with Roland or a reflection with Roland. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about that part. But you're hearing our thoughts in real time as it channels through. And one thing that's been striking me over the past couple of days, it feels like a sadness, but I don't think it's essentially sadness because part of change is the grief before we move into something different. But I woke up this morning and that word sacrifice was on my mind. Just that one word sacrifice. And when you started talking about the gardening, I had a flash in my brain of a certain card. I saw the picture and I knew what deck it was in, but I wasn't sure what card it was. And it was a woman with feathers on her head. I saw the picture in my brain. I found the card. Guess what the card is? I'll give you two guesses, but the first guess doesn't count. Okay.
First guess doesn't count.
What do you think this card is?
Let me guess, sacrifice.
It is. Yes, I had that little vision in my brain, and then this is what it is. And if you look closely here, she's holding this butterfly in her hand, and she's not grasping it though. She's letting it go,
All right.
just holding that hand out. And that just kind of brings to my mind all the things that we have to sacrifice, or the meaning of sacrifice, everything we have to sacrifice in order to go through our growth and through our cycles and through our changes. But we really only consider it sacrifice if there's weight in what we're giving up, if it's not an easy choice to make, if there's something there that is rooted deeply. And then knowing that that's the thing we have to let go of in order to go through our cycle, in order to go through our change, then it becomes a sacrifice, something that we let go of, whether it be your expectations around your garden or whether it be when it's time for your garden to fall back in the winter, whatever that is, there's a sacrifice to it. And I'll get back to the upper realm in a minute. Do you have any words? What do you want to say on this subject?
Okay. As you were talking, the thought that came to mind on the sacrifice, part of the sacrifice, for me, the feeling for me is sometimes just change.
Mm.
Whether you're sacrificing your point of view or your perspective, or maybe even sacrificing a decision, like you went one way or another versus another, and then you had to come back to this, or you had to change direction completely. And that's the thing with working with, it's funny now we're talking about this garden, is or even agriculture in general, is you can have this vision in your mind that this is what I'm going to have, and this is what I'm going to do, and you think you put everything into place, and you have this thought of what it's going to look like in the end, and what's going to happen, and something happens. You get a bad batch of seed of a particular vegetable or fruit or something, and then nothing happens, and you start thinking, all right, well, I'll just replant it. I'm gonna still keep it in my same original plans. And then it's like, okay, then there's no more seed of that. There's the time of year you just don't have it. So it's like you have to, and it sounds very trivial, but it's literally like, okay, maybe that happened for a reason, because I need to plant this. Or maybe the other way is, maybe it didn't happen because I've already overwhelmed myself with what all's coming, and I don't realize what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, once again, it goes back in that flow, but the, nature, plants, they'll teach you when something's not going to happen, or either challenge you or to change or something. And that's one of the things of the garden. It's like for me, it's like everything's in control, but I'm not in control. I do my best to try to make it happen, but I'm not in control. So, and even in doing so, you just like that word sacrifice. We sacrifice your time to put something into it, but there's no guarantees.
That's where my mind went, actually. As soon as you said, and then it's a bad batch of seed, my brain went, wasted time, because I can't, time is just so precious when there's family and, work and friends, and you have so many different elements to be a whole person or to achieve your dreams or to accomplish your purpose. And it feels like we've invested so much time and energy into this space or into this project or into this person, and now things aren't going according to our expectations or our vision.
Yeah.
So now everything's wasted and I hate everything and I want to quit. Ugh, whatever. But I really liked how you said, but it's the flow that you take around it, allowing yourself to flow through. Well, maybe that would have just been overwhelming and I need to let it go and sacrifice that time to allow this thing. Or maybe I need to just flow into the next thing and plant something else instead, something that will end up being even better than what I thought it could be. So in those moments, just allowing flow to happen. Something stuck me though. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. And it may not even seem relevant because it almost seems metaphorical. But if you did get a bad batch of seed and wasted so much time that you couldn't replant anything there because it was too late in the season by the time you realized the plants weren't coming up, what do you feel like? Just channel the answer. What do you feel like the lesson in that would have been? If you couldn't flow through to something else and it just felt like wasted time, wasted land, wasted seed, what would your lesson have been in that?
It's like the lesson is just to stop and go, make yourself go, it's okay, and then look at it differently.
Change your perspective.
Yeah, that's there you go. Change perspective, and of course, as we're saying earlier, and I can't remember before we started the recording afterwards, but when I work with clients, it's like I'm telling a lot of them, I'm telling myself what I'm telling you is like a reminding because I'm human just like everybody else, and I like you'd get like, oh, I just wasted this time or da da da, or things aren't working, or it's like, what's the deal? And of course, I've got these thoughts that things should be moving here, my plans, my whatever should be moving here, and I'm still kind of whoa, and it's just like, okay, all right, but. So yeah, that if you just couldn't do anything in that space, like you prepared for me, like some garden boxes and above ground boxes, and they didn't. I just couldn't put anything in them. It's too late in the year, or whatever. Like you said, then it's like, take a breath, think about the options, learn from it. Then now, what do I want? But still goes with the flowing of it. Still gonna be frustration. But then if I breathe into it, it's like, okay, but I got all this other. I've got all this. Whether it's my work going, I've helped all these people, but I couldn't get out and maybe connect with as many people as I wanted, but that's okay. But look what I did connect with.
I like that a lot. Change your perspective, because there's nothing that can strip your ego down more than putting so much of your energy and time and commitment into a thing that doesn't work out, and then you having to just change your perspective. You have to just let go. That is like the biggest ego sacrifice I think that you can do, is just to get over, and if this is a metaphor for anything, then having to get over being embarrassed about it, having to feel like there was a failure about it, having to feel like you failed your own self. There's a lot there that we end up letting go of. So in that particular case, we're sacrificing not just our expectations, but we're sacrificing our own negative thoughts about the situation. We're sacrificing our failures or our perceived failures and changing our perspective around that. But I also feel like it goes the opposite way. Just for instance, I had some body work done this morning before we got on this call, and some question just struck me, and I asked my bodywork specialist, who is a woman, I said, so possibly trigger warning, who knows, but we're going to be feminist for a little bit. And I asked her, I said, as a woman, do you ever like try to massage people's bellies? And she's like, not unless they ask me to. I've only done it like maybe twice in my entire career. Granted, she's been working 25 years. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, why do you ask? And I was like, well, I've only ever been to 2 massage therapists in my whole life, and both of them wanted to massage my stomach, and both times I had to ask for a cover-up. And she was like, oh, man. And so this led us into this entire talk, right, about female versus male massage therapists. And of course, this doesn't apply to everybody, but we were talking about that and how advantage can sometimes be taken for female clients. And what I came to during all of this, and the reason I'm telling this story is because I feel like at times women in general, because of how they're raised, or because they start on the healing path where it's, okay, now we're going to get into shadow work, mirror work, projections. So you need to realize how all of the negative feelings you have inside of you are because of your past wounds and traumas. And so while these things were happening with those past massage therapists, I was still in that space where I was thinking, okay, would I be reacting this way if this was a female massage therapist? No, I wouldn't. So I think it's just because of my past and my wounds and my triggers that I'm feeling this way. So I need to fix myself. And what she said was, why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we settle for less than we deserve just because we're in the position to have to place a boundary and someone acts inconvenienced by that? And I was like, I've been gaslighting myself into thinking that I'm the problem when I'm not the problem, because the reality is, yes, I would act different if it was a female therapist versus a male therapist, but that's okay because a male therapist is more likely to want something or be attracted to something from me versus a straight cis female therapist. So it was just like this sense of sacrificing in the beginning, sacrificing my wounds, sacrificing my traumas in order to try to change my perspective. But over time, that's not always a reality. And I have to shift my perspective again in order to realize it's okay to feel certain ways, to place certain boundaries, and to protect myself energetically and emotionally, because not everybody does have my best interest at heart. And even if they weren't trying to take advantage, it would make me more comfortable, me more calm, me feel more safe. And I'm allowed to do that for myself. So that whole sacrifice and shifting your perspective thing, that just came right around ding this morning for me. I was gaslighting myself, Roland.
So let me go back what that one phrase you said and all that. Sacrificing my wounds.
Mm. 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 Mm-hmm. Of course you heard that one. Yeah.
Okay. What's it mean to sacrifice your wounds?
Okay, so we're getting deep now. Am I blushing? So if I were not talking about myself, but if I were talking about someone else, I'll go ahead and project this so I could be more neutral about it. We have to sacrifice our stories and our wounds and our past because they are part of what we hold on to, not just to define ourselves or say who we are now, but it defines what we need in order to feel safe as who we are today. And so when I said that, it felt like if I felt unsafe, it was simply because of a perspective I had because of a past trauma. And I needed to work on that feeling and simply surrender in the moment and allow, and then just work on the triggers later. So it was giving up that need to protect in the moment. And that was the sacrifice. The sacrifice was really sacrificing my safety, which is interesting that the safety was synonymous with the word wound in that moment, because I was trying to push through fear in order to understand wholeness.
Okay. So I thought that was interesting because I would have expected more sacrifice your safety or sacrifice your desires or sacrifice your needs or sacrifice even your future or your dreams or any of that. But I heard you say sacrifice, essentially your wound, sacrifice your another way of saying it, or trauma or what have you. Um, yeah, because it does put it, like you said, synonymous between the two, and it's like sacrificing those wounds is it's like what we really want to do, but I want to say it. It's not quite coming out right. I can feel it, but I can't get it to put it in words just right. But it's okay. Sacrifice. We're used to sacrificing our safety or our dreams or something because something doesn't happen. Let's say like the whole seed thing. We had this image, and because of the bad batch and because of the timing, I had to sacrifice that part of that dream or that image or that desire or what have you. But if you look at the seeds not coming up and you got this bare spot of soil and they're just sitting there unproductive, how do you sacrifice? How is that sacrifice? That's almost like your wound, this open wound sitting there, that open bare ground is sitting there. In this healing process as a person, and I'm just throwing this out there because you got me thinking, I'm trying to work my way back into it, but look at that as like a failure. Let's use that as that didn't happen. Something in your life, it was a failure. Whether it be a relationship or a job or a business or whatever. And it's like an open wound. It's like that plot of ground sitting there and it has to stay empty until next fall or something. How is that sacrifice? How does that help us heal more specifically? The sacrifice of the wounding. But at the same time, we have a tendency to, tuck it down. Are we actually sacrificing it? Or maybe we are. I'm just kind of throwing it back and forth. I'm not saying I have an answer, but it's a phrase that is really jumped out at me.
Well, you asked the same question in different words that I asked you.
Okay.
And the answer was changing your perspective.
Okay.
Is what it felt like. Because when we have these wounds and they're beneath the surface or something we haven't directly addressed or dealt with, then that's when it gets projected onto other people around us, right? So like this person isn't trying to be mean, but we perceive this as a rude interaction because we're triggered by something we've been through in the past, right? So of course we want to sacrifice that, give that wounding and be like, okay, I see where this wounding originally happened. I'm giving it to the universe now. I'm not going to hide this or keep it below. And to me, that kind of looks like that barren land space. It's barren, and now we see that it's barren, and it's obvious, and it's kind of on the surface, right? It's not hidden from us anymore. We have the realization that it's there. But then there's like another layer that needs to happen, which is actually the healing process. So we can recognize that something's in the shadow, bring it to the surface, but then we offer it to healing. We heal it through love. We heal it through removing imprints. Just for the simplicity's sake of it, we can just literally just heal it through love and then shifting our perspective. And what that seems like is the part where you take that land and you make changes enough to it that now it's ready to plant seeds in the next year. So sometimes that time is just needed. That time is just taken to sit with it, to change the chemicals in it, to rearrange it. So there's stuff there that I think we can bring more love to, that we can change our perspective around and understanding of, and add more to it until it's no longer something that we have to sacrifice, but now it's something that is change. Now it's something that can be more in flow. Now it's something that we can set our intention with. Something that we can decide, okay, I'm not that. That is not my current circumstance. So now, who am I, or what circumstances do I want to have? And it's almost like that pause moment in that one season, that barren season, where we get to decide that and make those changes before we move forward again.
Okay. So back to sacrifice. To sacrifice, is essentially what? To give up, right? It's but without looking at it like a dictionary or anything, but to sacrifice, to give up in order for something else to happen, or sacrifice to, how would you define it? Or if you're even, unless maybe you're looking at it up already, but
I am looking it up already.
all right. What's it say for us?
Well, so for me personally, like in my own words, I would define a sacrifice as something that you give up, but there, like I said, there's weight to it. And there's weight to our wounds. These are things that are very personal to us. These are things that, like I said, have defined us up to a certain point, because our wounds drive us towards our healing path. We did preordain our wounds. So these are things that are a part of us in a very deep ingrained way, but we have to be able to let them go, lay down those old things, quit holding so tightly to them to keep us safe, or the lessons of them to keep us safe, so that we can become the next person that we intend to be, or that we want to be, or the next dream that we want to have, because they're the things that drove us, much like a lane closed, take this lane instead sign, but it's not the thing that is our whole personality. It's not the thing that is who we are on the inside. So we don't reject them, but we also can't define ourselves by them. But the dictionary says a couple of different things. Okay, I like this one. An act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. That's a good definition.
That's a good one. So, reason I was asking is, or I guess where I'm going back with it, if I can keep my thoughts straight, because he runs from one thing to another. But I like what you said with that. But it's not a way that most people would describe it. Most people aren't going to see it as something of value. But
Mm.
I mean, when you said it, it really jumped out at me because I'm like, I like that. That's true. When people, and most majority of the people I'm working with, is we're digging deep into those wounds. We're diving into it. Sometimes numerous sessions, sometimes one, but it's often a fight, and they're in their mindset of, a lot of them are, how it's hurt them and held them back, and it's a block, or they're stuck and they can't get over. But it has defined us. It may not have put us on the track that we thought we should be on, but, and for some of us, some of these wounds were very deep, and it really caused the journey to be harder in other ways. But when you look back at it, it did have value. Even though it was a wound, it had a value because it made you look at things differently through a chunk of your life, and a lot of times not in a good way. But it's sometimes not only in not a good way, but another way where you look back at yourself like, why am I acting this way? Because that side of you knows about it. So anyway, it's it's all like making you grow, making you see things differently, making you perceive things differently. Not always in a good way, but it's happening, and so there is value. It's just, so when you said that, sacrificing it versus releasing it or giving it up, acting like it's nothing but something bad. So there is value to it. It's those who truly didn't dive into it and work on releasing it, whether it be over many years or not,
Mhm.
end up looking back going, I'm here today because of this. I made these choices, or I now do this kind of work because of it, or I realized this didn't serve me, but this does, and then through this I can help others, or this I can develop something, or this I can do that. But anyway, it was just that comment that, like I said, it really jumped out. It's like you just don't hear people putting value on that, and by sacrificing, it's usually giving up something of value that you don't want. And we actually, a lot of us don't. We get those wounds and are so buried back down in, we either don't think that they're there, or we think that's who we are, and we just don't want to go to them again. We don't want to. And I end up taking a lot of people right back to where they don't want to go, but it's still has to be, yeah, I like that phrase, sacrificing them.
I don't know who needs to hear this, and this could just be because of my perspective around that too, is when we feel like our wounds are holding us back, what do you think they're holding you back from? I don't know who needs to hear that, but that jumped in my head. What are they holding you back from? Because just like that barren land that has to be barren for a season so that we can do something to it, make it fertile again, or give us more time to decide what we want to plant there next, there's a handful, quite a few people. I don't think that people always realize that when they start going through their healing process, how hard it is to change your perspective and how you think, because you still want to keep thinking from the wounded person's space.
Yeah.
And like, I've even had a few clients who, when we start working through, and I love them to death, and I love that they're this way and that they can admit it. It's that when we start to release certain wounds, they feel fear and they get afraid. They feel scared. And it's because they don't know who they're going to be next. They don't know what's coming next. If they're not who they know anymore, then who will they be? It's the change and the fear of the change that actually makes giving up the wound a sacrifice. It's the value exchange in the fear of that change. And I think that's important to think about too when we think of the value of these things, because we know we want to be more. We know that we can be free if we just didn't have this thing on us. But without this thing, it's really scary because we don't know what's beneath that thing. We don't know who we are. And we don't have an intention for what we want to be in the future. Or if we do, we don't know if we'll be able to accomplish it or how we're going to get there. So then these expectations and these changes become the fear of the change, and our own expectations become the thing that then hold us into our woundings without allowing us to sacrifice our old selves for the new person that we could be, for the thing that has more worth.
I agree with you. It's a new perspective, another perspective looking at it. That it has worth versus just a simple burden. But you're right in the sense that we spend so much, when you carry that wound and that wound causes you to be molded into a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time that molding is done by us because of the energy of the wound, the feeling, which is the energy. And you're right, working with my clients is getting those people doing the homework afterwards, which is reprogramming the mind, of all the negative self-talk. Let's reprogram that. Let's go a different direction, because that's, that is still there. That is, in the longer we live, it's like whether I've got a client that's 90 or if they're 25, the longer it goes, the longer that programming has been going on. And it can be harder when it's older. And sometimes you think, now I'm thinking this, and just as my thoughts are changing, but a little bit. But I will say, the more ready the person, the easier the reprogramming happens. But I guess they were ready to sacrifice it. They're ready to move on.
And the one thing that's coming up to me now is there's a mode of healing these wounds that we go through. And in the shamanic realm, this probably looks like going into the lower realms, the place of the past, revisiting those wounds, healing them, removing negative imprints and contracts in the mind and things like that. But something that's really coming to me is that there's another way to heal this also. And it doesn't come from the lower realm, it comes from the upper realm. And how ceremony and ritual are like power punches to healing. So while we do like to go through the healing process, the soul retrieval process, the past life regression process, and reprogram our mindsets, there's something about doing ceremonies or rituals or retreats and calling on those powers of ancestors and plant spirits and animal spirits and the guides and everything everything that exists in the transcendental realms. And instead of removing and washing away the past, but pulling in the future that just has this ability to wash through us, to open us into a completely different space, to just cleanse us and go ahead and bring in who we're going to be in the future. There's something that's really kind of rotating in my mind right now about that kind of change and how that helps us clear out the ghosts, if you will, that haunt us in our gardens. And just like a little FYI, I love how I worked that in. So I'm reading this trilogy right now by Nora Roberts. It's the Ancient Garden trilogy. And it's like 3 books about, and they're romance novels about this woman who owns a garden, but like also there's this ghost, like a woman that her child was taken from her by the master of the house and she was murdered. Maybe, I don't know if she was murdered on the property or not. I haven't finished the books, but her ghost lives there and haunts everybody. So it's like, in our analogy, it was really cool that I worked that in, because we we're haunted by our ghosts in our garden, but we have the ability to heal it or to bring in those transcendental energies to cleanse that and rise above, to fly above all of that and just become someone new, just to shift and transform automatically without having to just drudge through so slowly.
We do have a tendency to drudge through. But that word is also a good word because, drudging is, those wounds are like dragging an anchor, and you're literally drudging. You're pulling. You're struggling. It's a weight. It's just it's a dead weight. So drudging is another good term. It fits it perfectly. Yeah, to experience a ritual. Let's just say a drumming or a drumming circle or something. Experience a ritual where the vibration is high. Things are moving. It could be dancing, it could be whatever. And I'll throw out with me doing the energy cascades. It's kind of like it's not really a ritual, but it's the idea of the group coming together. Once again, the vibration is rising, and it will pull stuff out, whether it's drumming or whatever. It'll bring sensations out. Sometimes I bring it from the depths, but it's, even if it's just in little thin layers, but being in that moment and being in that energy, our vibration rises, and through that, we're able to dig a little deeper, look at things a little more objectively within us, and it's just it opens that space, where we're safe, and you can just let it be, let stuff flow again, let stuff fly away, but with the obvious hopes that then you can go back, feel safe to dive a little deeper, dive a little deeper, dive a little deeper. And for us as humans, it's, I can talk about this over and over and over. It still comes back to those wounds. Those emotional wounds are just simply energies, and we all have them in some form or another, whether it be the one time that your grandmother fussed at you, or was it over many years of a childhood or teens or what have you. We've all got stuff. Mm-hmm. And it grows us and changes us, but it's still not who we are. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to that as well that comes back to perspective and understanding how you can be in situations that might feel like, okay, I'm placing this boundary and I'm not going to tolerate this behavior. And so you don't, but then your perspective on it, instead of it being this person is unhealthy, this person is ill, this person is abusive, it can come back to, while your boundary is placed, it still can come back to, this person has had their own traumas, this person has had their own wounds, this person is on their own path. And them encountering me on their path is them learning, oh, I'm doing something that's probably not in line with love or respect, or with, it's changing their perspective also.
Also, yeah, that word also.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to throw that in there because that's another, I like catching your key words that that really stand out to me. And also is one, it's just like, yeah, because it is both ways. It's it's also us making a decision. Do they need to be on that path with me? Do I need to? Do I have to accept this? But like, or we were discussing earlier, don't let our own thoughts gaslight ourselves. Don't let our, just because we think we have to cross paths with this person. I guess we do have to cross paths because it was meant to happen, but you get where I'm going at is we're also, both of us, both sides are looking at it, and we just have to understand. I am completely losing that train of thought. It's just one
Because
thing's
anywhere
going
you
after
dropped it,
another.
I'm picking it right back up. You are not losing it, because I think that that's another message for people who, especially people on the healing path, is because we know concepts. And this is similar to religion too. There are concepts and principles that are taught. And one of those concepts is everything happens for a reason. The person on your path is meant to be on your path. And so we surrender to that, but that doesn't mean we have to surrender to somebody's abuse or somebody's
Right.
toxicity. And I feel like that's what you were kind of putting out there a little bit. We don't need to gaslight ourselves like, oh, the universe put me here, so I guess I'm supposed to learn something through this trauma. And it's more like you're both learning something through being on those paths, as long as you can hold to your own healing and your own boundaries. Then you're both being taught something that eventually will straighten out both of your paths. So everyone we encounter, it's not just for your healing or just for their healing. There's also that happens. So in this particular visual, if you will, then it's like maybe the issue isn't just the seed or just the ground. Maybe it's a little bit of both. And we need some new seed, and we need to, I don't know. Can you make fertile ground out of infertile ground? Do you put chemicals in it? I don't know how that works, but you can do both. Yes?
Yeah. So,
He's going to tell
infertile
us.
ground, or just one of the main things in fertility is moisture. Not even the soil itself. So, was it bad seed or was it overwatering? Was it too much rain? Was it bad seed or was there no rain or no water? It's so there's all these variables that go into this, that go into the play, um, but also, some soil is just like a particular soil, like in a particular plot of land somewhere, is only going to be so good. It's just some soil without literally rebuilding it. Where it's, in today's age of gardening, we have all these things where you add to it where you can't do on a large scale. But so there's a lot of variables that goes into it. So another way of looking at it is, in this scenario, in your life, you're going to go this far, and which is great. In another scenario, you're going to go much further, because let's say for me, I planted a seed that couldn't handle that soil because the pH is too low or too high, but another seed would have done tremendous. And either way, it was a good adventure. It was a good learning, and something happened. But as far as us as people, go back to your statement you made, where you said, somebody's trying to work things out and something happens to them, and they're like, I know I'm here for a reason. I'm supposed to have learned something from this. I know I'm going to be learning something from this. And a lot of it is you already did. You just, it didn't have to be a major thing. It could have been a little thing. And I believe as soon as it happened, we learned. And we keep kind of reaching for something else. It's like, no, you already did. You already know this. And sometimes it's just like learning that I'm not comfortable in this situation. And that could be just it. Not a big lesson. It could just be learning I'm not comfortable in this, or I don't like this, or maybe just learning like, oh, I do like that kind of a thing. I do like that environment, or I do like whatever. So that is a big thing. And another part is the learning is, or awareness, of what it is, what's actually going on, or what's going on within you. And then we can take that step forward. Are we ready to sacrifice the wounding? Or are we just going to keep sacrificing ourselves, until we're ready, until we're ready.
Dang.
Huh?
That was deep. Are we going to sacrifice the wound or sacrifice ourselves? And how long is it going to go on until we're ready?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not those wounds. We are a self.
But here's another thing is, for anybody who's listening, if you're not ready now and you end up being ready in 10 years, it's still a good thing. There's no criticism. There's no expectations from any, and even from yourself. Is when you're ready, you're ready. And unfortunately, sometimes we get pushed to the limit in order to be ready, where we've had enough of it. But hopefully now we've got more and more people listening and learning and reading and experiencing and just anything and everything. I'm seeing some people who've already done their work, a lot of things, and then they're coming to me and said, I don't know what's there, but let's see if there's anything there, just that kind of thing, which is wonderful. But I literally had a client recently, who's 91 years old. And it was refreshing because she wasn't like beating herself up. Why didn't I do this all my life? It was just like, it was more about, she was more in the state of mind. She was excited that she finally got to this point and now understands it, and now is feeling free of it, free of whatever, and I think we got to sacrifice that mindset of beating ourselves up or gaslighting ourselves or something, because we have this expectation, which is another one of the words we were talking about of, this needs to happen now. We do need to keep working towards it. I'm as guilty as anybody of getting sidestepped and not doing my work, but Spirit's going to celebrate us whenever we jump that hurdle, whether it's today or 10 years from now or what have you. But it's still part of the journey. And as long as we're moving forward, we're still working towards, sacrificing those wounds and sacrificing the unwanted that is teaching us all in that 10-year time. Nobody wants to hear that because we want to do it right now. And I'm guilty of that too, but it's kind of like we can't go back in the past. It's only now. When there is no future, there's only now. So what do we do with it now?
I felt this beautiful energy right before you said that. I don't know if we were channeling Christ consciousness. I don't know what that was. It just felt like a thin band of pure love moved through, because what we're seeing here is that we have to learn to love the things that wounded us, not the person, not the tragedy, but loving us so much that we love all of our experiences and everything that shaped us and everything that pushed us to the place that we are. And then in this moment, choosing above everything else just to love ourselves. And it just felt beautiful and uplifting. And I just felt like there were little wings in here, just as you said that last little part. Thank you so much, Roland. Is there anything else you want to leave everybody with today?
I think the best thing we can leave them with is, loving yourself, working towards loving yourself. We all go through the mud. We, some of us go through so much more than others, but looking at ourselves, that's the my work, or what I try to have the goal for people is to get them to see themselves and love themselves, not egotistically, not narcissistically, just being at peace, love yourself. And then through that, then start seeing everybody else, and just kind of being at peace with things. Yes, we have to work on our wounds. Yes, we have to address these things. Yes, we have to acknowledge these things and try to step out of the past and from into the now. But Mary, I think you're spot on. It's looking at loving ourselves.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget, Roland's going to be at our upcoming retreat in June. So if you'd like to experience him, make sure you get tickets to go out there. He's going to be in Wake Forest coming up at the end of the month as well. And of course, we've got his website link in the description if you guys want to book a one-on-one session with him. And I'm sure he'll be back here because we still have to come up with a name for your very own segment, right?
There you go. Sure, why not?
Rambling with Roland, but I don't like the word ramble. So we're gonna do a different.
We're gonna work on that.
We're gonna work on it, I promise. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye now.